So when you look at it from that sense, there's no surprise that if you're a bike shop that just sells bikes, you're toast pretty much. You have to have some sort of other offering, whether that's a club, whether that's good servicing, whether that's cafes. You have to sort of diversify, I think, as a bike shop, because bike sales on their own, it's just not a good market to try and compete in against bigger boys.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Talk It Out podcast, and today we are talking about bike sales and the future of bike shops, and potentially reasons why bike sales and the bike industry has slumped recently since the COVID pandemic. And today we welcome back Dan
with open arms,
after he's recovered from his man flu.
I thought I'd been sacked, to be honest, but here I am.
Yeah, well,
cheap hourly rates.
We were hoping you'd be ill for a little bit longer because it's been quite nice, but unfortunately here you are.
Yeah,
so.
But interesting topics today. So we're talking about all of that, and then something exciting that you're doing, which might conflict with some of the things we're saying about bike sales, but more on that in a little while.
Yes.
Where do we start then, Dan?
Let's start with bike sales, because it's pretty well known amongst the industry and amongst cyclists that bike sales have slumped for many years since COVID. So we had a big boom in 2020 into 2021 with COVID and everyone wanting to get outside and ride bikes, and especially seeing a lot of newcomers to cycling, which is great, more people riding bikes. But since then, we've seen a consistent decline in bike sales, as backed up by the stats, which we'll get into later. But we've also seen a lot of bike shops and bike distributors or cycling distributors go under, mainly because of COVID-related problems. COVID seems to have been blamed a lot for these sorts of issues. So I guess we'll dig into why we think there's been a massive slump in bike sales since COVID. So what are we seeing?
I mean, a lot of it isn't rocket science, right? Cost of living crisis in the UK and worldwide, as we know. People have less disposable income to spend than they otherwise have previously. A bike for many people is a luxury, so it's a cutback. Bike prices have risen lots, the cost of everything's risen lots, so I think it's just a case of perhaps people prioritising. I think there's been a big sort of missed opportunity with the cycle to work scheme. So the limit for most schemes, or for the classic cycle to work scheme, is £1,000. I remember years ago, £1,000 was like the benchmark for, you could either get a carbon frame and Shimano 105, or you could get Ultegra and an aluminium frame, and it was like a mid-range good spec road bike. Well, now I'm sure you can get some perfectly fine bikes, but they're not mid-range. They're not like competitive bikes. I think that bar's moved, and the opportunity that people can sacrifice salary to buy like electric cars seems to be a lot more appealing now than a bike. So lots of reasons, but I think people's buying habits have changed as well. So you have people coming here, Dan, all the time with, I'm assuming, bikes they've got new or new to them. Where are they buying them from? What sort of things are you hearing about customers and where they bought bikes from?
Yeah, I think so. In those COVID years where we did have that big boom, a lot of the bike sales at that time came from what you'd call entry-level bikes. Again, price-wise, whatever. We'll ignore price for now, because entry-level bikes is an entry-level bike.
People's first bike, because
they get new people getting into the sport, wanting to go out road cycling. There was no traffic on the roads. The weather was great. This first few months of COVID, so got a lot of newcomers to come to the sport. Based off the back of that, a lot of bike shops and retailers did over-order, because they were selling out of bikes and the distribution was struggling. Like there wasn't that much flow in, and there was obviously a lot of flow out. And obviously at the time, you couldn't buy pretty much anything. You just had the choice of what was there, and if you didn't have anything in stock, you had a very long wait for another bike. So retailers were panicking, wanting to get stock in, making big orders, and those orders took time to come. And by the time the orders did come, the demand had sort of waned a little bit, and then all of a sudden your bike shop's overstocked and you're having to discount all your products to try and get it out the door. So a lot of entry-level bikes went in that time. And a lot of people now, and consistently again through the numbers, high-end bikes have pretty much stayed a constant in terms of sales, maybe a slight dip, but nowhere near as much as these entry-level bikes. And I think a reason for that is there's a lot of the newcomers into cycling did that in 2020. So 21, 22, 23, there's not going to be that many people looking to get into the sport because they're already in it. And those cycling fanatics, let's say, or, pretty hardcore cyclists, road cyclists, they're going to be the ones that are going to continue to buy bikes, whatever. Like, they're always going to want a nice bike. They're always going to want to look to upgrade. They're always going to want to spend a bit of money. And they're normally the people that do have expendable income. So a lot of the new bikes that we're seeing are the top end bikes. And again, I would say that we do still see some entry level bikes come in, but price wise, they're certainly not entry level now. We're still talking £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 even for a basic 105 Shimano 105 bike, which, like I say, at the time, a few years ago, you can get it so much cheaper. So definitely the price change has had an impact, but I do think it's just a bit of a natural progression, really, of the type of cyclist and type of people that are riding bikes.
It's interesting you say that top tier bike hasn't lost sales or hasn't really changed a huge amount. I don't know if you know, Dan, but I spend a lot of time on YouTube, both creating and viewing. I follow a lot of the supercar world and car dealing world, just individual creators and a couple of people who actually buy and sell cars for a living. And it seems that throughout the COVID era, similar to bikes, there was a boom, and sports cars, supercars, all experienced a surge in prices, and then they settled. And since then, they've remained pretty much the same. Porsches tend to hold the value, and the special ones, GT3 RSs, hold the value, and so on. And I wonder if it's just because people are buying those cars, and I hear some of these people on these channels say this, they're buying the 911 Turbo S. It's not their only car. They've got the Ferrari 488. They've got a Range Rover for Monday to Friday. So they're still in that position where they're able to buy multiple of these, and it's not a be all and end all to whether it's 10 grand more or less. Similar to bikes, the person who's got the S-Works SL8, generally, they've probably got the winter bike, they've got the gravel bike. It's not their only bike. I'm sure there are some people who do have their only bike, but it seems like that's the case. They've just got in a different situation in life to some people. So maybe that's the case, and that, I think, is a shame, really, because not many people start cycling there. And if that's where brands are then going to be making their money, they're going to focus more and more on that. And then where do these entry-level bikes disappear to, or the entry-level options?
Yeah.
Shall we talk a bit about bike shops then? So where you would historically, if you wanted to buy a bike, you'd go to your local bike shop, right? And this segment especially, we'd love to hear people's thoughts on, because we're only two people with experiences. There's a lot more out there, I know. So let us know in the comment section down below your thoughts about where you think bike shops fit in your cycling ecosystem. What do you go to your local bike shop for? Do you go to a stream a chain like Evans or Halfords or something, or do you support your local bike shop, and where do they fit in? But Dan, I know you've not been doing a great deal of riding recently, but when's the last time you went to your local bike shop, and what was it for?
Yeah, it's interesting, really. I mean, I think I'm a really poor example. I'm not a standard cyclist, because a lot of the stuff we buy, we have access to through the business, and I know people who are mechanics and they can do work for me. So I couldn't tell you the last time I stepped into a bike shop. What I would say is that, well, again, if we go back to what happened to bike shops when COVID hit, and like I say, a lot of them overstocked and had all this stock that they needed to shift. What we're seeing now in the last maybe 1 year, 18 months, something like that, is that bike shops, especially independent bike shops, are having to discount everything to try and compete with the bigger boys like the online brands and the big chains. And what that's created is this big sort of race to the bottom. So going back to buying bikes, a lot of people, if you're buying a bike now, you're not paying full price. There's offers going everywhere. There's no one's paying retail price, which, again, go back 3 or 4 years, you had to pay retail price to get one. That no one needed to discount anything, because there wasn't anything to discount against. So when you've got local, small, independent bike shops who aren't on a massive margin anyway, the cycling industry against other industries has typically had a very small margin, and that's just how it's always been. There isn't actually that much to play with when you're trying to discount stuff. So when you see stuff at a discount in a small independent shop, they're likely giving up the vast majority of their profit margin to even try and compete or get close to an online price. So when you look at it from that sense, there's no surprise that if you're a bike shop that just sells bikes, you're toast pretty much. You have to have some sort of other offering, whether that's a club, whether that's good servicing, whether that's cafes. You have to sort of diversify, I think, as a bike shop, because bike sales on their own, it's just not a good market to try and compete in against bigger boys.
Yeah. So I have been in some bike shops over the last year or two, and for various different reasons. I am a sort of person who I do a bit of mechanicking myself, so I can set up tubeless, I can set up gears. Bleeding brakes I sometimes struggle with, so I might get some of these bleed brakes, but we've got people in the club who, for a case of beer, will set your brakes up for you. But there are a couple of times I have been shops over the last couple of years, sometimes for bits, sometimes for mechanicking work, and sometimes for bikes. So firstly, mechanicking work, there are some things that I can't do on a bike, or you can't find out where that creak's coming from. Or there's a funny part, a bottom bracket that you just can't get to sit right. I had a second-hand bike that I bought and I planned to build it up myself, and there's a threaded bottom bracket, and I went to thread it, and whether it was already cross-threaded or not, I don't know, it was a second-hand frame.
I can tell you the answer. Yeah,
so I cross-threaded the bottom bracket. Yeah, maybe, Dad, maybe. Now, I need to resolve that. So, okay, what do I need? Well, I need a tap. They're £300 aside from Park Tool, and you have to buy two of them.
This sounds like a new bike to me.
It does, yes. But I took it to Big on Bikes in Little Ian, a great shop, and to say, I'm in a jam, please could you, fix this for me? And they're very good, and they did, but our part mostly went there because of the specialist part. If I did have the thing, I'd probably still be a bit too cautious to do it myself, because if you strip it, then that's it, game over. But they didn't even have that part there because it was T47 bottom bracket, but because of who they were, and they have an account with Shimano and they deal with them so much, Shimano HQ actually lent them the tool. They used it, rectified, and I didn't get billed for that. They just charged me their normal rate, which is very reasonable, and they put a new bottom bracket in it for me. Great. I couldn't have done that without them there. I wouldn't have gone in there and bought a set of tyres, because I thought, I just didn't even cross my mind, because you think, well, I'll go on Chain Reaction or Wiggle or whatever, because it's going to be cheaper. And when you walk in and you look at the prices, you think it probably is. And I feel for them, because we've looked at things when I'm building bikes before, and I've gone, I'm buying this crank off of Facebook, or I bought this from wherever, off Sigma or something, and you'll say, I could have got it. Actually, it's not actually that much different sometimes. Sometimes it is. Sometimes like Sigma are knocking them out at less than trade.
That's it. We're not a massive retailer of any stretch of anything, but so we don't get the big margins.
It's just for your bikes.
But you often see a lot of products that are selling online for cheaper than we can buy them for as a business to try and sell on.
And it's okay for a Sigma, because if they're getting me to buy, I don't know, if I'm buying the crank from Sigma, and then I'm also going to buy the cassette and the chain, and they're making money on that, that's fine. But if you're not selling that complete package, you're not making the money. I used to work for Argos many years ago, and famously they had a £200 TV they made no money on, and they made money on the insurance and the bracket and the HDMI cable. But because they got you there buying the TV, you're going to buy all the other stuff as well. The other reason I've been to bike shops recently is to buy bikes, but I haven't been in a shop and gone, tell me about that. What sort of bike do I need? There's that much content on the internet now. I know you've got to be careful with influencers and sponsored people and whatever, but if you want to know what the new Colnago V5 RS looks like, it's been released yesterday, and there's already five videos on the internet about it. First ride impressions, spec impressions, somebody stripped one down and looked at the bottom bracket tolerances. Like, what more information do you need? I feel really well informed. I've actually been to a company that buys and sells second-hand and new bikes, We Buy Cycle in Derby. Now, the reason for that is just because what we were talking about earlier, the cost of brand new bikes. It is, outside of my price range to be able to be buying brand new bikes. The two bikes that I bought from We Buy Cycle are actually both been for my partner Liz, so maybe we have different budgets when we're buying bikes for her than we're buying bikes for me. But they have anytime new bikes that shops have sold them because they can't get rid of, and second-hand bikes that people have either part exchanged or sold in. And I just through the ones I know I've bought, they're second-hand, but they're like brand new. So that tells me there's a lot of people who have bought a bike throughout the COVID boom, used it a few times, and then either given up cycling or gone to something different. And I'm all for that. Great, I'll jump on that for a bargain, not a problem. But there's those people who were in the sport now who perhaps aren't, I've not bought my first bike and ran it into the ground and I'll buy something new. I'm not cycling anymore. So there's that as well. But it wouldn't cross my mind to go to a mainstream brand and to buy a bike purely because of the cost of them. And I know it's all individual, people in different situations in life, but that's the, why I wouldn't have.
Yeah, so going back to what I was saying about bike shops, I think, again, if you're just selling bikes and trying to compete, like you've got no chance, basically.
I'd love to see the breakdown, and maybe this is something you're going to cover in your little project, as to a bike shop. Where's the main revenue source? Mm-hmm. Is it maintenance? Is it parts? Is it bikes?
Yeah.
Is it selling the chamois cream on the desk or the gels or whatever?
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see.
I think the point is it just can't be one of those things.
Yeah.
And obviously it's going to be mainly bikes. It can't be just bikes. You've got to have. If you're selling a bike, you've either got to offer some sort of service around it that you cannot get anywhere else, or you cannot get online, or you're selling other things off the back of it, like club memberships, coffee, other stuff to try and draw you in other ways, because the bike itself, as I say, you're not going to be able to compete with big margins that these online retailers get.
Yeah, you've got to give people a reason to pick you over other people nowadays, because you've got to compete for it and getting that emotional connection. It's like if you're just buying a thing, buying a crank, you put it in Google, you see where it's cheapest, and that's it. It's not like, oh, do I want to support Sigma or Chain Reaction?
But also, it's the convenience of online. You click that button and it's there tomorrow, probably. Yeah. Whereas otherwise, you've got to go to someone or phone up someone and say, "Oh, can you get this for me?" Yes, we can get it, but it's going to be a few days. And then. The best will in the world, if you want to support your local bike shop, it's made very difficult for you to make that choice.
The other way, it's not a bike shop, but I've took my TT bike recently to a specialist mechanic to build it, because I'm struggling for time. I very often do build these sorts of bikes and then things rattle loose in the first couple of rides, and I just don't want that sort of hassle. But this person doesn't sell bikes, doesn't sell anything, just works on builds, rebuilds, those sorts of things. So that's another way I've sort of interacted with it. But whether that's supporting cycling in general, I don't know. But it'd be interesting to hear what people think.
Yeah.
Do you use your local bike shop? Do you not? Let us know your thoughts.
And this feels like a good time to segue into our little project.
So selling bikes isn't making any money. Dan,
no,
talk me through what, because you haven't actually told me fully about this anyway, so it's good to go through it.
Yeah, we're going to sell bikes.
What?
So we are starting. I mean, I'm very reluctant to call it a bike shop, because it is definitely not going to be a bike shop.
And this is driven from a need, isn't it? You see people coming here.
Yeah.
And I rode with somebody last week who got a very nice Trek Madone Project 1 integrated cockpit, but needs a different size.
Right. So this is where it was born, really, is this concept of people coming in for bike fits or bringing bikes in for bike fits. We do the bike fit. It's great. It's got an integrated cockpit or proprietary seat post or cranks that need changing, and all of these components need adjusting to get that bike to be an enjoyable, rideable bike for that person, whether it's causing them pain or injury, or whether it just doesn't feel great, or whatever it may be. You need to change these components to achieve that goal.
You're telling me you can't stock all of those things?
Funnily enough,
a spacer for a Cervelo S5, please.
Yeah, funnily enough, we can't. So the problem being that all of these components need changing. Person brings the bike in, finish the fit, and then at the end we're like, right, so you need this cockpit, you need this seat post, you need these cranks, and they're adding it up in their head and thinking, right, well, that's £1,000 probably straight away, and if I don't spend this £1,000 after spending multiple thousands of pounds already on this bike, I'm not going to be comfortable. And that's kind of the reality of it. And we can't do anything other than sit there and say, yeah, that's the state of the industry. And it's a really big problem, and it's very annoying, and it's been annoying for a very long time. And we've had this thought of trying to make buying a bike, or make being able to access bikes that have components on that fit you easier, and the main way of buying a bike. Because and this is the whole message around this new business that I will get around to mentioning in a minute, is that the way we buy bikes now, where you go online or you go to your shop and you want a size 54 Trek, let's say, and it comes with these Bontrager or now Trek bars, and it comes with Bontrager wheels, and it comes with this seat post, and it comes with this stem length and this bar width and this crank length. Can I change those now? Because I know I don't need a 42 centimetre bar, I want a 38. No, you can't, sorry, it just comes as it comes. Oh, what about the cranks? It comes with 172.5 cranks and I need 165. No, sorry, you can't change that either. What about the saddle? I know I'm not going to need that saddle. Can I put a different saddle on, or just can I buy it without the saddle and have it a bit cheaper? No, you can't, it just comes with that saddle. And it seems backwards, and I think it needs to change, and I think it will change, and I think if we're looking back at this in 10 years time, I would like to think that the main way to buy a bike will be to choose your frame, size. Hopefully you've had a bike fit or a sizing before and you know the geometry and size that you're getting, and then you can choose your stem length, you can choose your bar width, you can choose your crank length, you can choose your saddle, you can choose your seat post setback, you can choose your wheels, you can choose your tyres, you can choose your tubes or tubeless, you can choose everything at the point of purchase so that when you receive that bike for the first time, it fits you and it rides perfectly. And you do not need to spend any more time or money or effort changing these components because you just bought the right thing first time. You can tell I'm pretty...
Yeah, I think it puts a downer on the whole experience of buying a bike, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You buy this bike and you've got to spend more money, or it just doesn't fit you right. Oh, it's supposed to be a good experience.
Ultimately, if you're a new cyclist coming into the sport and you buy this bike and you save up and you spend a lot of money and you think, right, great, I've spent all this money on a really good, expensive bike, it must be perfect, it's going to be amazing, I can't buy anything better. You sit on it and ride it and it just feels crap because it's got really wide bars, the cheapest tyres, crappy saddle, really long cranks, all of these things that we know are really common problems. And that new person to cycling is going to think, I don't really want to ride my bike. It doesn't give me that feeling of want to ride because I know it's just going to be uncomfortable or unenjoyable. And it
I've got some questions that you know.
Go for it.
What's it going to be called? Where's it going to be based? Who's going to be running it? How do people get involved in it? Is it going to be loads more expensive than mine?
Can you ask one at a time? Because my brain is just... What was the first one? What's it called?
What's it called? Where is it?
Okay, so we're starting a business called Crafted Cycles, and the business is ultimately what I've just described, where you can choose a bike frame. We're going to have a choice of brands, or you can bring a frame to us and we'll help you build it up. That's perfectly fine as well. But the components that we'll be able to kit out your bike with will not be brand specific. We'll be able to access the vast majority of components. So you can choose the brand of your stem and the brand of your bar. And if you want different branded stem to buy, you can have that. And you can choose your tyres and everything. So you can basically spec your bike as you want it straight off the bat. It's going to be based here. So we have a studio, UK Bike Fit in Matlock, Derbyshire, and just across the way we've got we're going to rent another building. The downstairs of that building is going to be our custom build workshop, and it's going to have quality workshop. We're not skimping out or saving money on.
So if I need to borrow a tool, get a T47 bottom bracket tab.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have all the tools and it's going to look great. And as part of that space as well, we're going to have a nice comfy space, just like a living room vibe space where you can just sit down and chat to our manager, our mechanic, about what you want from your bike, what components you want, what type of riding you do, why you're buying a bike. All of these conversations that I think are encouraged not to have with the current way of buying bikes. It's just what colour do you want, what frame size do you want, click, done.
And is this that you're going to buy in and stock these, or are people able to still source, are you going to be motivated to sell specific brands, or are you going to be open book, whatever brand?
Yeah, so with bike frames, we're going to have a selection of brands that we can access. But as I say, if you've got a brand of bike or you've already got a frame set that you really want, buy the frame set and bring it to us, and then we can access all the brands. Shimano, SRAM, Campag if you really want, if you're still that way inclined. Although we'll probably roll our eyes at you, then you can have Campag, and all the finishing kit brands as well. And we're not going to be brand specific. So we don't have allegiances. Yes, some of those brands might have 2 or 3% different margins, but we're there to sell a bike that is right for you. Whether it's 2 or 3% margin difference is not the key. It's about getting people on bikes that are enjoyable. Okay.
How does that fit in with the bike fit side then? So at what point, if somebody goes there, have they got to have a bike fit? Do you suggest they have a bike fit? Where are you getting involved with that?
So obviously this is the USP, I suppose, is that we have this facility as our sort of sister company, if you like. So if you've had bike fit with us before, we've probably got all the information we already need to spec you a geometry of frame and size of frame and components. If you're not, then just pop up, we'll have a sizing session, get all your geometry data, feed that back to down there, and we'll start that process. We won't sell a bike unless you've had a sizing or have some measurements or some data.
Yeah.
And that's not because we want to make a bit of extra money. We'll probably, if you end up buying a bike from us, do it for free. But the important bit is that is the way to buy a bike that we know is going to be right for you. And ultimately, we're not going to sell you a bike or any components if we don't think it's right for you. So we're going to use our bike fit and sizing facilities to enable that process.
Mm-hmm. One of my friends in the cycling club uses a lot of like custom built bikes. He's got a couple of different brands where he's gone to, been measured up, steel frames, made to size, etc. Brilliant. But they ain't cheap. We're talking like, 10 grand plus. Is that going to be the case for this? Is it like, premium only, or what's the range?
Mm-mm. So yeah, we're going to have a range. That's going to be the point. And I know that we can make a custom built bike for someone cheaper than if you were to buy that bike off the shelf and get all the crappy components with it that don't fit and that you need to spend time and money changing. I know we can make it cheaper. So not only do you save time and effort and the annoyance of having a bike that doesn't work for you, but you also save some money as well. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why this way of buying a bike shouldn't be the norm and shouldn't just happen all over. So we're really going to try and, make this a no-brainer where it's like, well, of course, like, why are we not doing this? Why are we not buying bikes like this everywhere?
Yeah. So we've just spoken about bike shops and how we think, they need to diversify their income streams in different ways to be able to make it successful. So Crafted Cycles, how is that business going to generate enough income to survive? Because fingers crossed, you might be selling 20 bikes a week, but unlikely early on. How is that going to take care of itself?
Ultimately,
a big overdraft.
We don't need to we don't need to sell 20 bikes a week to keep the lights on. Again, we're not going to be a bike shop. Mm-hmm. We aren't going to be carrying hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of stock at any one time, which is the big flaw that a lot of independent bike shops have struggled with, and the ones that have sadly gone under, they've struggled with stock. We aren't going to be stocking anything specific. We'll have some stock, obviously, that we can display and show and, explain to people. But again, it's going to be custom built.
Here, you've got a row of test saddles, but you don't have 5 cockpits.
No. But if someone wants one, we can get one.
Yeah.
And the brands that we're going to work with, this has been one of the key things that we've been discussing with brands at the minute. We want to make sure that the stock levels are high because we want to be able to say to someone, right, you could do with this stem length and bar width combination that fits this bike specifically, and we can get one next week, or we can get one within the time frame that it's going to be to build your bike anyway. So you're not waiting around for components. But we aren't going to be carrying tons of stock. So finance wise, we don't need to hit the same markers that a traditional bike shop would need to hit.
Yeah.
And it takes all of the big risk out of bike shops, out of what we're doing.
And that means obviously margins don't need to be as big, so you're more competitive in the market as well.
Yeah, and we don't need to. We're providing a service that you can't get anywhere else, or very few places. Yeah. So we don't need to compete with online. I think most people appreciate the fact that I might end up spending £100, £200 more for my bike, but actually I've had all of this great advice. And like I say, I think in the vast majority of cases, you'll get your bike cheaper than what you could have got it off the shelf.
Yeah, okay. So when is this going to officially launch, and where can people follow on?
That's the big question. That's my big stress.
Is it next week or the week after?
God, I wish. No, I've got a few more sleepless nights left yet until that happens. We're aiming for June the 1st.
2025.
Yes, this year.
Clear.
If it's not June the 1st, fine. July the 1st. It's going to be June or July. And
do you want to call this clip several times? August the 1st. September the 1st.
If I tell people it's happening, it's got to happen.
June. I believe in you.
I believe in June. A lot of things have got to fall into place for June to happen. So, and a lot of those things are out of my control. So, if it's not June, it's no big deal. But July.
And inspired by myself, you're a vlogger now.
this is that guy's fault behind the camera.
So if people want to follow along, are you going to document this on the UK Bike Fit channel, or is this going to be a separate channel? What's they doing?
Both. So yeah, if you're either on Instagram and YouTube, follow or subscribe to UK Bike Fit, but also follow and subscribe to Crafted Cycles. We're going to have our own YouTube channel, our own Instagram page. So all the updates are going to go on there. And on the Crafted Cycles YouTube channel, we are going to have content such as dream builds, mechanic tips, product reviews, product launches, first looks at products, and obviously talk through some of the swanky stuff that we'll have in there.
How to tap a cross-threaded bottom bracket. I'll provide you a
We'll
box
get you
for
in for that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, how not to tap a cross-threaded bottom bracket.
Awesome. Well, Dan, obviously, I think I'm a good friend of yours, so I'm always going to be a supporter. I love that you try new things all the time, so all the best in your new endeavour, and hopefully people will enjoy it and follow along.
Thank you. Yeah. And let us know if you think it's a terrible mistake
Yeah.
or whether actually we'll be all right.
There's one way to find out.
Yeah.
Good stuff.